Welcome to our live and thanks for joining us. I am Stacy, the teacher marketing manager at ClassTag, and I'm joined by a wonderful and experienced educator who is going to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a 7th grade English teacher.
Okay, so today we're talking about setting up a school support system. I think one of the things that everyone assumes is that you're a teacher, you have all the answers. How many times have you heard that from your students? You're supposed to know everything. But we don't. We're just people, just like everybody else. So today we're going to talk about where do we find those answers? So let's start with, how do you feel about saying the words, I don't know, when a student asks you a question?
I actually have no problem with that because I want my kids to know that it's a safe space and that, frankly, I'm not going to know everything either. So it's better when you're real with your kids.
Okay, you mentioned the words safe space. What does that look like for you? I love those. I love safe space. I think that's a great way to put it. How do you make a room a safe space?
For me, anyways, I found that it depends on how it's used, actually. So my kids have a safe space. Like if your kid's really shy, I have a safe way for them to let me know they need help without announcing it to the world. So create a safe space for my kids to come and tell me when they need help with something, or when they're having a bad day, or if someone's bullying them. I feel like I create the environment from day one that my students have no problem coming up to me and saying, hey, Miss, can I talk to you for a second? Absolutely. Is this something we need to talk about after class, or is this something we need to go in the hall for? And they're like, can we go in the hall? Sure. And they know if I say that it's not going to go anywhere, it's not. But I also remind them with every conversation that, hey, just so you know, if you tell me something iffy, I have to say something, but I still want them to know that they're safe.
I love that. And why do you think it's so important to create that safe space for your students?
Not every kid has that. Some kids are loners and they don't have friends. Some come from broken homes. Some feel a sort of feeling of depression where they feel like they don't have anyone. And I'm also real with my kids, and they're like, Miss, I'm really struggling. You know, I have depression or I have anxiety, and I'm telling my kids, I have that stuff too. And you just have to find out how you deal with it.
And I think that makes you really real to them. The fact that you're able to admit and you're willing to admit, I have those things too. Like I feel the anxiety, I feel the same things you feel, and it also gives you these resources to share. I had a student this year that had really bad anxiety, and one of the things I shared with them was the 5 grounding techniques. And I got the flyer and I printed it out and I gave it to them, to help them zone back in when they started to feel those anxious feelings, so they didn't go full panic attack. Have you had an experience like that?
Yes. Most of my students respond, I think it might be the generation, but most of my students respond really well to music. And so there are times like we use a system called Go Guardian. Before you can really see it, and I'll send them a message like, listen, do me a favor, put your earbuds in, your headphones on, with your mouth with your eyes closed, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds great.
They seem to respond really well with that. Some of my kids don't respond well with that, in which case it's the traditional go take your 2 minutes out in the hall.
2 minutes out in the hall is a huge thing. 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it actually is to someone who just needs that quiet time, because classrooms can get really loud. They can get really obnoxious just because learning is happening and kids are excited and they're talking and you've got 20, 30 kids in this room that's not really that big. So it can be overwhelming to someone that has that kind of anxiety. And it's great to have that, I guess you could call it a chill out period of just a couple of minutes to go outside and decompress from all of that. I'm going to introduce one more person real quick. Jen is joining us. Welcome, Jen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jen. Hoping I have my tech issues working out now. doing the meeting correctly, but I think if there's any questions in the chat, I think I can help with that too. Yay. So I am a kindergarten teacher. I've been here for 16 years now. So I'll answer any questions that you have from the lower level. My screen's with me.
And I think this is the perfect picture of education. Technology is great when it works, but sometimes it doesn't. We all know this. We've all had to deal with it, and that's just the way it works sometimes. Okay, so back to our topic here. We're talking about, is it okay to say I don't know? How do you feel, Jen, about saying the words I don't know when one of your littles asks you a question that you just don't know the answer to?
I'm totally I don't know. And let's look it up. I that frequently. Sometimes kindergartners ask really a lesson right in the middle of your story, right in the middle that you spent like 6 hours prepping over the weekend. So you're everything. And I'll say if I'm not in the middle of a lesson, or we're going to look it up later today. And if it's a hard question, I'll have to look it up after school.
I think that's a great answer. If it's a really hard question, let me look that up and I'll get back to you. A lot of kids are very, I want it now. I want the answer now. You should be able to tell me now. But you can't always stop right there in that moment and look something up. So is there an opportunity there to kind of work in that patience lesson about, I will find you the answer, but we kind of got to wait on it. How do you work that into their, to the lesson?
It's really important to be honest with them and explain exactly what's going on in your head so they understand. Right now we're reading a story, and after the story, here's a schedule over on the board. This is what we're doing. You go to me, or I can say in a couple minutes, I have 2 computer screens on my desk. And I can be looking at something else on the right screen. I do have a written filter at my school. Sometimes if you're looking up an image, stuff sneaks through, and once they see or hear something, they can you preview a Google search before you show it on. Cut and paste it into a Word document, something like that first. It's worth every extra minute of accidentally show that embarrassing commercial on YouTube. Worth getting an ad block or your tech department about filtering ads for all sorts of different things that you could be an ad for that you can't stop fast enough. So I direct. That's just who I was raised. So, okay, like I'm done. We'll have time for this.
I think that's a great way to do it. And you made a great point about going to your tech department and not being afraid to say, hey, the filter, it's not working so great. Can you help me out? Can you block these things? At the district that I was at, they had a help support ticket where we could put in a ticket and ask for them to block something if we saw something that was just, shouldn't have been there. The problem with blocking things is with the internet, it just keeps there's more and more things coming up. It's constantly an issue. And if you block one thing, another one pops up, right? So how do we go about teaching kids when looking for an answer to find a valid one or a vetted one?
At least at the secondary level, we have that as actually a part of a whole unit, a research unit, and we teach them the difference between, a viable source such as Encyclopedia Britannica or a research journal or something like that, and then there's Wikipedia. But that's a lot of the same with this generation in general. If they read it, it doesn't matter whether it's a vetted source or not, they're going to believe it. So that gets a little difficult sometimes.
Yes, I absolutely agree. If they see it on the internet or they see it on, let's just say, TikTok, they believe everything that they read. And that's kind of a problem. Teaching kids, you've got to vet your sources, you've got to see, and really this kind of applies to some adults as well. When we're talking about education resources, there are a lot of sites out there. There are a lot. And some of them might be claiming to be experts and they may not be. Or those resources might apply to some kids, but they may not apply to yours. I think you have to know your kids to find good resources for them. And you also, is it worth going and asking your coworkers, hey, where do you find resources? Because they teach the same kids you do. What are your resources in your building for finding answers? Not necessarily like Google, but people. Let's talk about people. What are the resources in our building that we can go to?
Well, absolutely. It would be my partner teacher. In secondary, in my school anyways, we have 2 teachers generally who teach at the same grade level. And if, for instance, they don't know because they're a younger teacher than you, we have a department head, which we call CIL. We also have secondary people that head up the whole department as well as downtown. So there's literally a whole ladder you can work through to find your support.
At my school, we have 7 teachers, and 2 are at my school and 5 are at the other school. We just do a lot of group emailing, group texting, because there's really not another good way. Although ClassTag has introduced me to a really efficient app called Slack, and everybody can use it. And I actually happen to be at a business that the guy that worked there suggested using it as well, because it's a really efficient way to exchange messages with large groups of people and files quickly. And it's not just a whole bunch of text messages. I think it's way easier than text messaging, but it's really difficult to keep up with the text. And honestly, for someone who is busy a lot, and when you teach in a self-contained room all by yourself with not a lot of breaks in between, or when you shift between classes, like you have 1 prep a day, I sit down, look at my phone, and it says like 50 new text messages every day. It's really overwhelming. So to have to sort through all that, it's too much. So we usually talk in the morning. We did finally get phones in our classroom where, like, if it's a quick question, you can call the person next door and be like, hey, what math lesson are you on? Because this doesn't feel right today. Or I got a funny question from one of the kids, and I don't remember teaching it this way last year. Is this right? Because sometimes, your brain fails you. You lose your thought. So, or the famous, you're right in the middle of your sentence and somebody interrupts you and you completely forget where you're going with your thought. So, which never happens to any of us teachers, right? Every day. So, there's lots of resources, but it does take practice. Yeah, it took us a long time. We used smoke signals for a while when I first started. So, yeah, our old school, it barely had internet. When it rained, we had no internet, and I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. It was really terrible, and the copy machine was like a good 10-minute walk down the hallway, and you had to print out a page and carry it with you to get a copy from it. So, jokes aside, we are lucky to have phones now, but we don't have any cell service, if that makes you feel any better. So there's no perfect school, I promise.
No, I feel that struggle. And ironically, I taught technology and I had no cell phone signal in my classroom. Wonderful things.
I have my opinions, but I shall keep them to myself.
Yeah, we could go into that all day long. If you guys are having trouble, if we're cutting out, we are still having some technical issues. Feel free to put your question in the chat and we will make sure that we answer it. I apologize for the tech issues, but again, technology is great when it works and sometimes it does not. So we've talked a little bit about, different resources. So I want to ask a personal question to the two of you. Who are those people in your building that you go to? I know one for me this year was the secretary. Make your secretary your best friend. They know everything. And if you're having to fill out a lot of paperwork like I was, that is the best friend that you want. So what about you? Who are your go-to people in your building?
It would actually be anybody in the office between the secretaries and the attendance clerks. Those people you want to be friends with every second of every day. And then the librarian, because the people who don't see things in the office, the librarian will. We, at the school I'm at, our library doesn't have walls. It's in the center of the building, and they literally see and hear everything. So between those three people, those are definitely my go-tos every time.
My school's super small because we have only 6 classrooms total. The 2 kindergarten, 2 first, 2 second, due to it's super complicated. We could go on for a while about it, but one of our other schools had moved to one of our additional schools, so our school's super small. And so everybody knows everybody. So you can reach out to whoever you need. We usually just have a building group text and you just put what you need in there and somebody will answer. So if you need like fancy scissors for a project or your short paper plates or you ran out of snack, somebody will usually help you. But the secretary knows just the right voice to talk to the copy machine in when it's not working right. And I'll text her and be like, I need you to just use that nice voice to the copier because I tried and it didn't work. And you guys mentioned the janitor. She doesn't get paid enough. She doesn't. I'm like, I have a problem and I'm not sure what words to use to describe it, but I'm just going to need your assistance. And some silly things have happened with like animals and things that you couldn't even imagine. Because we have some woods behind our school and she comes every time and makes it better. So there's always somebody. The lunch ladies, they always make sure everybody gets fed. The paraprofessionals, like they don't even bat an eye when you're like, so this happened right now, and they're like, okay, we'll help you. But everybody just knows like we won't get through it unless we do it together. So you always try to remember those people on holidays and at the end of the year, even with just a simple thank you note, to tell them that you couldn't do their job without them, and they're often not paid at the same wages as teachers are. And so I always try to go out of my way to thank them because they deserve it. The nurses too. Those are the people that you really want to make sure that you appreciate them because they're going to be the first people rushing in when you need help. The janitors, the paras, the nurses, the secretaries, like they're going to be the first people to help you. So if you're going to be going in new to the school, like make sure you introduce yourself to those people because they're going to be really important to you and help you make really good connections.
And another one for me was the attendance clerk because I was really bad at the end of the day at remembering to take attendance. So, make friends with your attendance clerk so they can call and be like, hey, you didn't take attendance again. And then it saves you from the paperwork you had to do later because of that. So that's another
way. Our secretary does ours at our
okay.
I'm like, what's an attendance clerk?
No, I'm jealous.
I don't know what that is.
We only have 6 classrooms, like.
My secretary she'll like call me and then like send me an email and then like make an announcement like you forgot again.
Okay, so we've talked about resources in your building. We've talked about Google and those type of resources. Now let's talk about another type of resource that helps you with students, parents. They are one of our best resources, and in a lot of ways, they're one of our most untapped resources. So, how important is it to establish good relationships with parents at the beginning of the school year?
Essential for me. Essential.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. I think our experience is going to be similar but different. For me, for kindergarten teachers and early level teachers, especially during the pandemic, you'll have the full range of parents who are terrified to send their kids to school because they're just afraid of their kids getting sick. Are you going to take good care of my baby? Are they going to come home the same way I sent them to you? What are you going to be doing all day? What are the other kids going to be doing all day? And you have to do a lot of reassuring. I like to start before school even starts. I go in, and our school has like an all message system that sends out 800 million emails a year, I think it feels like. But I always go in and send an email and say, this is our class tag. Here's how you can get a hold of me. Please sign up before school starts. And we try to make an early connection with our class tag, get everyone signed up. We try to welcome everybody into the classroom about our orientation. We do ours before school starts. I know every school kind of has their own thing for that. And then the parents come in and usually meet us before school starts, and the kids go out and play on the playground together, and we talk to the parents, and parents make their first connections with us, and we kind of build that first community feeling with everyone, and then let them know they can reach out to us anytime. Send me a class tag message. I try to answer mine as much as I can because I know what it's like to be that parent late at night. Oh my gosh, is this homework due tomorrow? Is she going to be mad? What are the words? I don't know what to do. What's for lunch tomorrow? I don't want my child to go to school and I have to work, and they're not going to like the choices. What do I do now? When's the library day? I can't find that. And ClassTag has some great options for that. I can say, like, make sure you check in the resources tab. I have all the things there. What do I do about their birthday? I forgot to get a birthday snack. It's on the slideshow. I put it in the tab for ClassTag. It keeps everything really organized for me, and I can keep reminding them, go over here. You can find it right in here. I kind of set them all up for that. But ClassTag helps me stay connected to them, and we kind of feel very together. And I can say to them, I talk to your parent, to the kids. I talk to your mom or your dad or your grandparent or your guardian, because we care about you and we're a team, and they need to know that we didn't have a good day today and we both care about you and we want to have a better day tomorrow. And ClassTag lets me do that throughout the day, and it lets the parents be involved. And then I could say, like, we're working together, but ClassTag lets that be fluid throughout the day. And I don't have to wait until 5 o'clock or oh my gosh, I forgot, and it's 10 o'clock and that child's at home like fretting that I forgot. It's just really helpful to keep everything connected.
You're right, by the way. Our experiences are going to be kind of similar. The difference is being a 7th grade teacher. Most of my kids, they've either been at the school the previous year or they had siblings who were in the school. And so the parents are kind of already familiar with how things work. But it is really good that you have that open line of communication. You need to make sure that it's clear with the parent that you're on their side. It's not going to be the pick on your kid or the fact that your kid had a bad year last year, so I'm going to assume that they're going to be a horrible kid this year. It's just like we talked about earlier with the safe space. ClassTag enables me to be able to provide resources to the parents and to communicate with them, so then I don't have to worry about them feeling like I'm picking on their kid. They can feel like I'm a safe space for them. I have parents who their kid is in another class and they're like, my kid said this about the other teacher. Can you let me know if that's the truth? Because I can't get a hold of the teacher. And I'm like, sure, let me do that. And so they know that you're here to support them no matter what, you and the kid.
I think you've made great points. And I've been reading a lot of, teacher comments from new teachers, and there's a lot of them that are terrified because they've heard these horror stories about parent phone calls or parent contact. listen, that is not the typical.
Mhm.
In my 8 years in education, I've never had a parent curse at me. I've never had, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying it doesn't happen as much as you think it does. I've never had that terrible interaction. Now, I've had a couple parents that were like, I really don't know what to do with them either. I'm trying. But I think the important thing is start that conversation on a positive. There's always something nice you can say about that child. Start with the good things and then ask them for help on the not so good things. If they know that you're coming from a place of you care about that child, they're going to help you because they want to help their child. As long as they know that you care as much as they do, they're going to help. And I think that's something I really want to stress to any new teachers watching. It's not as terrifying as you might think it is. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And make sure that you look at it from a positive. If you imagine, first year teachers, they hear the horror stories and things like that of these kids going crazy and parents being crazy. But you know what? Sometimes they've just had bad experiences and they just react to what they're used to. But don't assume that that's how they are all the time. I've had parents where other teachers like, don't ever call that parent. They're rude. They cuss me out. And I was like, oh my God, do I really want to call that parent? And then I'd call them and it'd be like, hey, I just want to let you know that your kid had a really good day today. And they were like, that made my day. And I don't have a problem with that parent because they know that I'm there to support them. But you are going to have those teachers who are like, that don't, bad. And it's just like with the kids, don't ever take that at full value. Take it with a grain of salt and make up your own choice.
And I think with those parents, like when you do have those bad parent experiences, that's a conversation you need to have with your administrator. They need to know if a parent's cussing at you, you need to tell someone it's not okay. Parents should not be treating you that way. And there is a system in place in your school for dealing with that. In my school, if we got cussed out by a parent, we told the administrator and then they called the parent after that. Like we didn't have to call them again because you shouldn't have to call a parent when you're terrified to have to talk to them because of the way that your last interaction went. So if that's happening, report it. But I think for the majority, it's not going to be that way. There are those parents. I'm not going to say there's not, but you see all these horror stories, but you don't see the good ones. And you touched on something else, making positive parent phone calls, calling that parent saying, hey, your kid did amazing today. Because for some of those kids, those parents are not getting those phone calls. The only ones they get are negative. Make the good phone calls. It's great for them. It's great for you, and it's great for that relationship. Speaking of great relationships with parents, once you've created those relationships, you've built the relationships, what does that do for your balance of work and life?
I find that if I've built that relationship with the parent and I'm real with them and say, hey, I understand I'm a mom. I have 3 kids and, I tell them a little bit about them, like especially if it's let's be honest, they're children that are they have very large personalities. They just do. And so, frankly, one of my teenage boy, frankly, does. And so once I establish that connection with them, I understand it's a struggle and I understand that you get overwhelmed and all that. They seem to respect my boundaries more. They don't push them as far. But as long as I stick to them and I make sure that I'm here no matter what, I don't have an issue with boundaries as far as between work and home when it comes to parents and things like that.
Have you found that your workload is less when you have better relationships with parents, giving you more time to devote to the things you want to do at home?
Yes, I do. They don't send emails and don't have to worry about text messages, and I don't have to worry about my phone blowing up. They seem to understand that if I've already built that relationship of she will get to it as soon as she can and that she will make it something important, they understand that, hey, I'm good. She'll get there.
I'm not the best person to ask about that because when you have the parents coming in as first-time parents, it can be hard, and you worry a lot about if you're doing it right, and if your kid's really upset about something and you really want to know the answer. It's hard to just set a boundary and say, I'm not answering it till tomorrow. because then you know how that parent feels. Like, you know that they're at home worrying about it. They're probably losing sleep over it if they sent you a message about it after hours. And like, I feel bad for those parents that are worrying about it enough to send a message and say, like, you know, my kid's having a hard time at school and they need help. Like, they're sending me a message after school that they need help. I want to help them, and leaving it until I get to work in the morning isn't going to make it any easier for me, because I know when I get to work, I have things I have to get done then too. So the thing that really helps me is the office hours. I really like those. I set those up. That was one of the huge draw-ins for me for Class Tag, was that I could set up office hours so that parents would know, like, oh, hey, she's probably not going to get back to me right away because it says right on the app, Mrs. So-and-so is away from her computer right now. She'll get back to you whenever she is in her office hours or something like that. But it's right on there. And then like my kids' teachers have that too. And I know that, you know, they'll get it and it'll pop up in my email sometimes if I'm going to check it. That way I can check in when I want to, if I have time. But like, sometimes I'm tired and I need to go to sleep, so I can't be answering stuff at 11. But I'm not real good at letting things go till the next day, because I really don't want parents to be up at night stressing about it or calling my boss in the morning at, you know, before my work hours even start, and saying, like, I reached out to her and she did not get back to me, before I've even had a chance to respond and address, like, just a simple issue like, well, their backpack was very heavy yesterday after school, because, you know, they were carrying a bunch of things home during the pandemic due to an instant shutdown that could happen. And I could explain that, but, you know, if I leave it till morning, it could grow bigger than a molehill before I had time. So, but the other thing for new teachers too is you have to feel out the relationships with parents too. Sometimes, as you guys were saying, you'll hear like, oh, this parent says this and does this, and you do want to like note that in the back of your mind sometimes, but you'll feel it out. You'll be like, oh, this parent, they work really hard for their family, or they have 2 jobs, so they work better if I email them. They always respond to emails. I know I need to email them all the time. It's not that they don't care, they're just busy. And I know they're reading my emails, they'll write right back. This parent prefers a phone call. This parent, I need to send them a class tag message and ask them what time is good, and I can call them then. So there's lots of options, but you want to just try to set up a network kind of thing, make a little note in your grade book or wherever you keep that stuff, and find the best way to communicate. The hardest thing is that our class sizes keep getting bigger, so your responsibilities just get bigger, and sometimes it's not you. You know, if a parent is upset when they talk to you, or is yelling, it can often be their frustration with the situation at home, or with their child, or with the school in general, or they're drawing upon their experience that they had in school. They're thinking about, this is exactly what happened to me when I was in school. All the teachers said these things about me, and now it's happening to my child. And I had a parent reflect on that to me too, and I said, you know, please talk to me about what you're feeling. I'm here to listen. And they talked, and I said to them, you know, I want you to know that's not what's happening here. I want you to know I'm here to help you, and, you know, tell me what you need, and I'm here to help. So just make sure you talk to them and listen. Make sure you listen, and then you can help them move forward.
I think that's really great points. Yeah, building relationships with parents, it's a two-way street, and it's all about, you know, being open and communicating, but saving your own time, because your time is important. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We will have this posted here in a little bit for everyone to watch. Ignore the screaming child. My child is excited about something. Sorry. So we'll have the stream posted later. We're going to have a link to some great resources, some books, and some websites, and all kinds of resources to help you build that network. And we will be back next Wednesday with our next topic, which is something we all can relate to, which is self-care. So we will see you next week. Have a wonderful night.